Welcome back to the Goalie Corner presented by Stop Goaltending. I'm your host, Michael Hales. Today we have Matthew Caron and Clay Stevenson on to discuss their thoughts on the different styles of goalies from different countries. First off, welcome both of you. I know it's off season. You guys are probably loving life and enjoying outdoors. Matthew, you a little less being in Boston, but Clay, you a little bit more being in Kelowna.
Yeah, right. Get the beach every day, right after workout.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that sounds so nice. I just got to class.
I bet if we zoom down on his camera, it's just going to be a pile of books.
Yeah, dude, I told you, I'm just living the dream out here.
Anyways, any country that you guys wanted to start with? We have Russia, Canada, US, Sweden, Finland, and even a little bit of Latvia.
I won't be too strong on Latvia, but we can start with the Russian guys.
Yeah. All right, sounds good to me. So just open conversation, a little bit different. We have 3 people on, which is kind of new. Anybody want to take it off with what they feel like the strengths and weaknesses are of the Russian goaltenders? There's 2 evident ones, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I just like putting it to my game, like taking a lot of like the skating, especially watching Bobrovsky, and Shesterkin, especially like a lot of post play and kind of just little skating techniques that I've incorporated into my game. Just watching, I mean, I think you ask any guy who like some of the top goalie skaters in the NHL are, Bobrovsky's name is going to come up, Shesterkin's name's going to come up. It's pretty remarkable level of control those guys have, and just know exactly where their positioning is going to take them. Like you look at Bobrovsky, what he did in playoffs. A large part of that is due to his skating ability.
Yeah, a little devastating that you left Vasilevsky off your list there, but we'll let you slide.
I'll let Clay take on the big guys.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, no, like I definitely agree. I mean, you break down a game. I mean, you're stopping pucks for what, like a minute of the game, maybe, and the rest of it you're just skating to get into position. And yeah, I'd agree. Those, like, a lot of those guys like Vasilevsky and Shesterkin, and I like Sorokin a lot in there too. I mean, I think like I feel like I have a lot of similarities now to his kind of style. But yeah, like, just they're always, up at the top, not giving away room, like fighting through traffic. You don't really see those guys retreating a lot, and just really crisp laterally. I mean, they're not expending too much extra energy, like pretty, just efficient and smooth, and really powerful and explosive, I think, is a big theme with Russian goalies. Because yeah, and then I mean that can lead to like over aggressiveness too, or I think in the modern day pro style of goaltending, you're gonna get burned if you're just too aggressive a lot of the time and too on the shooters all the time. So yeah,
I think it's interesting to think. Obviously, I don't know about you guys, but I don't know any Russian goalies that aren't in the NHL. And trying to put the pieces of why are they so explosive but yet so controlled, right? Like the athleticism in Bob, in Shesterkin, and Vasilevsky. You can see that they're crazy athletes, but they're also very controlled at the same time. To an extent, right? Being in the splits for half the game is a bit crazy, but it'd be cool to see what it was like when they were growing up, and either the amount of coaching they received and didn't receive, or just the differences,
Yeah, I don't know if like how true it is, but I've heard like a lot of the elite Russian goalies get, put on very below par defensive teams that like give up a lot, and those guys, like, from a young age get put in situations in the games where they're facing just a ton of rubber, and it kind of just like that whole aspect of it just makes you be a lot calmer in that chaos of getting a lot of shots, and you know your conditioning is always there just to be on it all the time, you know.
That
Yeah,
makes
like,
sense.
I mean, like for me, like again, like kind of obviously word, just like hearing things, but like I've heard a big part is that they don't get as much like technical coaching when they're younger. Like a lot of the pro goalies, like they grew up whereas they were very raw, like they were athletes
Mhm.
first, where and then became goalies. Whereas like they're playing the game, like they're just playing, they're stopping the puck. It's not so much like, all right, we're gonna work on our angles, like positioning, like this stuff. Like it's get your body in front of the puck. And then as they got older, they obviously got the
Mhm.
goal coaching kind of stepped in and then just fine-tuned that. Where I think if we start talking about kind of Canadian, US goalie, North American goalies, we're very much a lot more of the all right, technique first and then kind of stop pucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
agree
think
with you 100%. That was I was gonna bring that up like right after you were gonna say that.
it's very like you watch like Carey Price, Carter Hart, like
Mm.
that style of goaltending compared to like Vasilevsky, Shesterkin. Like obviously they're both very controlled, but you can tell they're in vastly different kind of training backgrounds.
Yeah, yeah, lots of. I mean, I noticed it. When I was, I guess, younger, that like you know you have your goalie trainers, and I when I was younger, like people could like pick out like who they were training with, you know, just based on like how the goalie was playing, and so you just get molded into this goalie school goalie that you know can only really function pretty one-dimensionally, you know, and not really adapt their game too much to you know whatever stupid situation that can arise when you're in the net, you know.
I think yeah, I think you only watch like a lot like I'd say like obviously Devin Levi is like one of those goalies where he's North American goalie, but like you see a lot kind of like almost like a European style to him where
Yeah.
he he's just get stopping the puck. Like sometimes it doesn't look like as pretty as like Carey Price or something, but he's stopping the puck and is kind of like just getting in front of that puck where he's not it's not going to be always okay, we are pivoting and pushing nice and even on the butterfly. Like you're never always in the perfect position. So like I think I think a lot of guys having success right now have that kind of just raw athleticism that
hmm
got fine tuned.
But do you think like the Canadian, maybe we should do Canada next just so we have like something to compare to? Because we're obviously the most um, knowledgeable about what the Canadian goalie coaches and the Canadian hockey stuff does, right?
hmm
But do you think we should almost like postpone that training, like from the young age, in the sense of, okay, when we get the kids, maybe at like U13, so like Pee Wee, we know that they want to be goalies instead of their parents just, hey, my kid's willing, right? Strap on the pads. So prolong it a little bit, let them kind of fail and have some and find success and try to get the athleticism first. A lot of kids don't do any power skating now as goalies. They could just go to the goalie camp and do the goalie power skating, but not the normal player stuff. But what's your opinion or your take on what if like the U7, U9 kids, maybe a U11, just be like, no, just go stop the puck, learn how to have fun.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like, you know, that you kind of have to when you're gonna be if you're gonna decide to be a goalie, like you gotta have some sort of training. You gotta get that foundation down. Like if you don't know how to, you know, do a basic T push without like I mean, there's so many little things you can break down into a T push and how to effectively do it, you know, consistently throughout an entire game and your career. But you know, if like the kids like can't, they're always falling back and whatnot and don't know how to like stack themselves the right way in the crease, like to begin with as a beginner. Like it doesn't have to be anything crazy. I know when I was younger, I didn't have that much, but I mean, like I went to goalie clinics and just a little bit during the summers and, every once in a while during the season. And that helps you like bring stuff into practice. So, I mean, there's definitely value in having that when you're younger, I think, so you can, develop the right habits and get a knowledge of the position from somebody. Yeah.
I'm going to rebuttal that just a little bit, but I want Matthew's thoughts first before I give him all the answers too.
For me, I mean, I kind of just fell to the goalie position where like I started skating when I was, I don't know, 3, 4 years old. Obviously as a player, and I was always one of those players that like I was a good skater as a player, and that's kind of one of the reasons that when like it was my turn to be goalie, like everyone gets a chance to be goalie, like I could just like the gear didn't bother me. I could skate with it still. So I think you're kind of like point of should like kids try to be players first, all that stuff. Like I think a strong skating background really helped me become the goalie I am. And in terms of like goalie coaching at a young age, I think it should be heavily focused on just moving with goalie gear. Like it, I think the focus too much that I see is that like you're trying to teach a 6-year-old how to stop pucks efficiently.
Yeah.
It's
Like
hard.
he's covering about 15% of the net. I don't care how good you are, you're not gonna be stopping that much. Where I think I see like I mean just off like social media and stuff, like you see a lot of kind of Russian goalie coaches and their camps, it's a lot of just like weird skating movements.
Yeah.
Movement. It's not even like goalie movements, it's just movements with gear on. And I think that's a big kind of I'd assume a big part of why those European goalies are so mobile with the gear on. It's they're learning to move naturally with gear on rather than okay, what's the most effective way to stop?
Yeah, I
Yeah, I
agree
think,
with that. And I
yeah,
started as a player too, and like I always went to camps and did that, like power skating with the players and stuff too. So yeah, that's a really good point.
and the way they do it too, it's so the pace on it's just so fast, right? It's
Mhm.
like maybe once or twice in a camp, you get 2 or 3 goalies that have that pace, like just already embedded in them. Where it seems like over there, at least maybe it's just the video, right? Everybody knows the camera's out, so they got to go hard, right? Makes them look good. Maybe I should start doing that.
Got to shine
But
bright under the big lights.
yeah, that's fair. Now, to rebuttal both of you, just because I've got the coach mindset now. So, yes, for Clay and both, yeah, and yes, for you too, Matthew, in the sense of I do think coaching is good at the young age, but I think right now where Canada's at is there's too many goalie coaches or self-proclaimed goalie coaches, right? So parents got into the mindset of I always want to have a coach out on the ice. If the head coach is out there teaching the players how to do stuff, there should be a goalie coach out there teaching the kid to do stuff. And what that takes away is the being able to learn about yourself from that age on how you can do stuff. So my take on it is that kid is doing nothing but skating. Like we might do shots for the last 10 minutes of a practice just because they probably annoyed me just enough. But do that and then work on the stance to have a good stance because that's where all the saves are coming from, right? Like at the U6, U7, U9, kids aren't lifting the puck, but as soon as it hits U11, U13, nets get to the normal size, kids start raising the puck, zipping it. So like if you don't have a good stance set, you're kind of chasing from behind, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that piggybacks onto like what we are saying, and like just the basic like foundations of goaltending. Because I definitely know I've like coached really young goalies, and yeah, the stances are just atrocious sometimes, and it's just it can be so frustrating. Just like
they're like this
have your
guy's stance.
yeah, yeah, worse than that. At least there's net coverage. But
Yeah, the blocker's in the right position at least.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I mean, like just when they're young and developing their kind of style of stopping a puck, I mean, I didn't really know how I was going to be stopping the puck at that age. You just got to play because you definitely want to play. But yeah, coming back to your point about like work ethic in there too, I definitely think there's a lack of when you see goaltending camps around, and there's like just a couple of kids that really push the pace, and you can always tell that they'll might move on somewhere, but there's definitely a lack of discipline in the net when it comes to Canadian goalies that I've seen.
All right, last question about this, and then we're going to get back on. Well, we're actually going to get back on track here with it's a great topic, and maybe next round when you guys want to go head to head or something like that, we can talk more about that. What's something that I know, Matthew, you've talked about the last time you were out here, but something that you've seen the Russians kind of excel at or do something a little differently that you've ever tried implementing into your own game, or you just made it a part of your game? I'll let Matthew go first here.
Like, yeah, so I mean, like I kind of like it was honestly, I mean, through goalie coaching, I think at like once you get to kind of level, like a higher up levels, like me and Clay have played, goalie coaching becomes a little bit less like obviously at a young age, just like, all right, learn how to position yourself.
You're not going to hurt my feelings. I feel like you're beating around the bush. You're not going to hurt my feelings.
But at the older levels, it's really like, all right, here's something this guy's doing. He's having success with it. You want to try it out. Like, let's see how you feel with it. And I think that's kind of a big part of it where, like for me, it's like I talked about kind of Bobrovsky and Shesterkin, like their style of like movement. Like I barely T push at this point. Like I use kind of like a weird like shuffle push. And it's really worked for me. Like I just tried it. Obviously kind of having my skating background, I was like you're able to actually do it. But it just like you're just taking pieces. I think that's one thing a lot of people don't do enough of, especially in North America, where we're very much like, oh, we're the gold standard when okay, well, like everyone's being the gold standard at this point. Like everyone's having success. So I don't think there's one right answer to any goaltending coach or goalie on how to do something. I think you're just trying to absorb as much knowledge as you can on a bunch of different things. And then like me and Clay, like what, how tall are you? Like 6'5"?
4. Yeah.
Or so like there's
Yeah.
a 4-inch difference. Like his legs are probably my body height alone. So like each pad is like I'm sniffing the top of his pad. And so like we're just gonna have to play some situations differently where we're using our bodies in different ways, but at the same time, like me and Clay will probably do a lot of things very similar and like think of the game in a very similar way. And I mean, our career paths, like I was talking before we hopped on here, was like we both played. What did you play? 4 years in BCHL?
I played 3 years in the BCHL, 1 year junior B. That's where all the magic happens.
So yeah, like 4 years of juniors.
4 year, yeah.
And then like obviously went ECAC, Ivy Leagues, and then moved on from there. Obviously different paths moving on, but like there's a reason that we both have excelled in similar leagues and similar kind of teams around us
Yeah.
where we've either been peppered, we've had some solid teams in juniors, and like all that stuff. Like you can probably go through our game film, even though there's that massive height difference, massive difference in kind of probably goalie coaching growing up. Like I don't know what Clay's done specifically, what sports he's played other than hockey. Like we probably are kind of different upbringings, although probably a lot of similarities as well.
Mhm.
But I think the biggest thing is that it just absorbing other people's kind of knowledge where no one's gonna have the right answer, like I said, and you just try something out. If you like it, use it. If you don't, well, don't have to use it.
Yeah.
Fun
I
sport.
yeah, I completely agree with that. Like with there's being so many goalie coaches out there, everyone might have something to offer you. We definitely touched on this subject like last podcast I did here. And yeah, you definitely can't tell anyone to like pound sand, because it might work for you, I mean, you definitely like that's definitely a thing younger kids got to learn to do is just protect your game and understand what gave you success.
I
Move
think we're
on.
gonna have to put that on a shirt.
Yeah.
The Clay Stevenson quote of the year. Yeah, you guys are both right. There's no right or wrong way to stop a
Mhm.
puck.
Yeah.
Just easy and hard way.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just totally based on yourselves. But let's move on to somewhere else. So we got the starters of the RVH Sweden, right? For me, they're technically pretty sound down low on the post. Very tall stance normally. You have an outlier in Henrik Lundqvist, or sorry, when they're in their tall stance, they stay very narrow, but then when they go into their shot ready stance, they're usually pretty wide already. Quick,
Fair.
agile. I feel like that's going to be kind of the same for everybody on the list because all of us are probably thinking of NHL guys that have excelled.
Yeah, absolutely.
One thing that I see is not on the list that we kind of created is the mental side of the Swedish goalies. Right?
Yeah. I
They have
mean,
hockey IQ, calm
yeah.
demeanor, but that's something interesting that was left off the list.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that mental side of it, yeah, that's just I think is going to be so relative to just, who you are as a person.
Yeah.
All the you it's just if you're going to make it and be an elite level NHL goalie, like it's just that's just a staple you got to have that
Yeah,
mental
yeah.
toughness to really get through that absolute grind of a season, and yeah, that's just I think like every single goalie is gonna have that we talk about,
Yeah. Have either of you played with a Swedish goalie or at least against often?
I don't think so. Not
Oh,
that.
there any
I was
in
gonna
there was not many European guys in the ECAC, like juniors, no.
I think most of the European guys go like Big Ten.
Yeah, if they're
that's
coming
honest.
over to play college, like it's usually a bigger school.
Aren't you technically in the Big Ten now?
Hockey East.
Yeah, hockey
Oh.
is
Hockey
Yeah.
East, yeah.
Gotcha.
one of those guys now.
Yeah. Boo. Yeah, sorry. Totally lost my train of thought with that now.
I think just to touch on the mental side, I don't think country to country, like I think everyone's gonna have their own spin on it. Like you look at Aiden Hill this year, Stanley Cup champion. Guys trying to fight after like every whistle. Like that's one thing you don't see a ton of these days, but he won a Stanley Cup. So like everyone's gonna have their thing. Like some guys are just gonna be kind of more that arrogant, kind of silent arrogance type guy where like, I don't know, I can't think of, I mean, I guess almost a Carey Price where like he just had that cockiness, but like
Bennington too.
it was, yeah,
That's not quiet.
it's just one of those things where some guys are just, okay, it looks like he's got zero emotion and that works for him and it's
Mhm.
intimidating. Some guy just, if you get too close to him, you're getting a stick to the back of the knee. Like but there, I think the biggest thing, it comes to consistency. Like just whatever makes you consistent.
Gotta find out what makes you tick, you know?
Yeah.
Gotta get out there and whatever gets you ready to stop the puck. Well, keep doing that.
So just comparing real quick, the Swedish goalies. So think of like top 2 Swedish goalies that we might know of. I know Henrik Lundqvist, but it's because I'm older. I
Yeah,
can't think of another
mean-
Swedish goalie personally.
Isn't Markstrom Swedish?
I believe he is. Right. So if you use those two as like the basis here of our thinking, and then we use Vasilevsky and Bobrovsky, right? We
Yeah.
can use Sorokin or Shesterkin. What's the differences that you see in their games, right? You got a tall guy in Markstrom, tall guy in Vasilevsky. I think
Yeah.
they're also
yeah.
quite different.
I mean, you got Allmark too. I mean, he just won the
Allmark,
best now.
Robin Leonard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess there's a handful out there, right?
Yeah, there's
Right, but
I don't
Allmark's
know.
another
I'm a
6'4",
big fan of
6'5" guy.
Markstrom's game. You know, he's big. What is he? He's 6'6", and whenever I watch him play, the guy just fills the net like none other. You know, he's a guy that uses his size and plays that athletic blocky style of game. You know, and yeah, like he's not giving any extra movement. I think like him and Craig Anderson are a good comparison. I think they got pretty similar styles of game, both big
Yeah.
and play that kind of conservative game because they can. And then I guess that also determines a lot of your style too, how big you are.
Some might say. Right, but then you look at Vasilevsky and
Yeah.
he's big, he blocks,
Mhm.
but his stance is wildly different compared to Markstrom in the sense he's already very low and active.
Yeah, well, when he's like when it's up top and you see his structure, he gets into that position where he's comfortable moving wherever he can when the puck's like up top. He's up looking over everyone, and when that puck's coming, like he's driving down to it, from that tall stance, and then like as he's tracking, he structures himself lower. It's really, and you'll see Shesterkin doing that same thing. Like when the puck's up in the zone, Shesterkin's up tall. He's just patient, waiting on it, waiting for what is about to happen in front of them, and then as like the puck's getting closer and closer, they have that theme of closing down on that puck and really suffocating it as it gets in tight, I think. And like Levi's really good at that too. Like he's a good, from what I've seen, like really in tight and whatnot, really good at closing down on pucks.
I mean, kind of looking from like a small goalie's perspective, like you kind of like you're basically like when it's up top, like you're playing tall, like you're making yourself look as big as possible. And then once it's in tight, you're almost just like getting over top of it so that you like Levi does it so well where he's like you get in tight with him. There's he won a shootout was against New York, I think this year. Where like he's got like Patrick Kane, I think he's Zibanejad, and one other guy that probably be your round off the 3 probably most intimidating guys to take a shootout from. But like once they got to that kind of just within 10 feet of the net, like there's no way they were beating up like up high. And like he's not a big guy with 6'1". He's not Markstrom where he can kind of just sit there and his shoulders are still above the crossbar. Where it just getting over top of it again, like you're basically forcing the shooter to shoot low, or you're bringing him to the point where he can't shoot high. And I think
Yeah.
that's what a lot of these goalies are doing. Where, like you said, like even Vasilevsky, like pucks at the blue line, like he's basically straight leg looking over everyone.
Mhm.
And then as soon as it comes in, he's coming kind of like a wave, kind of just crashing down on it.
Yeah.
Coming over top of it, where obviously I think we're gonna beat him up high.
That's fair.
Mhm.
I think rounding it just back out, I'd say like the top strength of like a Russian goalie would be their, I don't want to say like athleticism, but their
Yeah,
ability.
that's right up there. Yeah, like I think
It,
like
yeah,
from Vasilevsky and like some of those Russian guys, just like the power that they're generating from
exactly.
their ready position, is something that I definitely tried to emulate in my game. That you see like goalies, and you're like, damn, he's fast, and that's just like they're quick on it, they're over top, like they're there, they're ready. There's no extra, that
Yeah.
that's
And then even their ability to get like powerful pushes from a wide like
yeah,
butterfly,
yeah,
right? Like it's
absolutely.
very
For sure.
quick for them. So I'd
I
say
Mhm.
think
that's like their top.
I think that's the biggest thing we're seeing. Like again, Bobrovsky, I watch a lot of Shesterkin, like their ability to move in a already kind of in a position where a
Like a
lot of
compromised position. Yeah.
yeah, like they're just another goalie might barely be able to like kind of get himself back together, whereas
Yeah.
they're just loading and pushing off, like making a massive push out of something that like almost as physically like seems impossible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
feel.
then going down to Sweden there, I would probably say their top consistent skill across the board. I would honestly just say, as like bad as it might sound, like their ability to stay and maintain the RVH and change the way that they play that style and just let everything come to them. I
I
don't
think
think often you see them attacking. They let the plays come to them.
I think
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
I think for them, I mean, obviously that I agree with that, but I think it's more of a hockey IQ thing for them. I think Swedish goalies are extremely smart. Like you said, like
Yeah.
Markstrom, like extremely just efficient. Like he's not making those extra little movements. Like he reads that play where again he can stay in that RPH and because he knows nothing else is gonna happen right now. And he's gonna sit there and wait it out where um, some other guy might be up already and then back down, and they're very. I feel like they're very minimalist, almost like
Yeah.
IKEA. They're the IKEA of goalies.
That's funny. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I was really, you know, fortunate enough to like work with a Finnish goalie coach in Hershey and Juha, and we talked a lot about like how I was going to approach, net drives and using the RVH and even on like power plays and stuff, and or when we're on the penalty kill is what I was trying to say. But and like his whole idea of it was, you can at a certain angle when the puck's like up on the half wall or like dot line to the boards over there coming down, like you can be a lot flatter in your RVH there and still cut down that angle and just like stay patient and wait on pucks like on the post. And I mean, that's the thing we worked on a lot. And how quick you can come from a tall position in your RVH back across to get there and stuff like that. And it was definitely a different way for me to approach it and
It,
conserves more energy. I mean,
it's
I feel like
yeah.
Sweden and Finland, pretty similar.
It's really just taking away an option for the player.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure.
So now all you're worried about, is okay, down low's covered, which might be the trickiest thing on the sharp angles. Right.
Mhm.
So now you have to worry about the high shot, which is easier to read, or because everything's going to come up, or the pass, right? Quick bounces, maybe. But segue into Finland here. my top skill for Finland would be their hands.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, you see lots of great guys. Everyone's got good hands. Yeah, it's so funny. Like you just like see like everyone's different styles. You know, everyone's got great hands. Everyone does it somewhat great. It's just slightly different, you know. And but yeah, I'd agree with that. You know, a lot what we talked about was, you know, how am I presenting myself, you know, to get the most optimal access to pucks with my hands, and how I'm really closing down in the position to snap down onto pucks, and you know, really focusing your head onto it and whatnot. And yeah.
I think for me, I mean, a huge Saros fan.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So like, and I mean, obviously, try to model my game a lot, learn a lot, try and learn a lot from him.
Mhm.
And he's one of those guys where I'd say his hands. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, his skating is next to none, but his hands are, I think, his best attribute.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like watching him like take breakaways and stuff, and they're coming down right down the pipe, like taking a shot, and he's presenting so well that
Yeah,
there's just, you know, not much to shoot at, and he's reading those releases and he shifts into them too, and like it's impressive.
like just the amount of like just glove and block saves he makes
Hmm.
compared to a lot of guys that are, it's hitting like a shoulder, like forearm,
Yeah,
like it's like dialed into his pocket or
yeah,
perfectly off the blocker. I think he's
yeah,
really one of the best in the league.
for
Yeah.
Um,
sure.
I think you even just look at the pool of all the Finnish goalies, right? Saros is the hot guy right now, but you have Rask, you have Pikarene, you have Mika Kiprusoff,
Mhm.
Nabokov, which might be before your guys' time,
No,
right?
he's right there, right
He's
at the
there,
beginning.
yeah. So like all great skaters, all butterfly guys, right? But the common across the board was glove side was just dynamite, and
Hmm.
blocker side was usually dynamite too, right? They'd be getting beat on like the third, fourth chances most often.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, even like I said, working with a Finnish goalie coach, I would say like the hands and really getting onto pucks is something he emulated a lot. But he, you know, he understood like how I was playing, and you know what was gonna work for me. And that's the whole thing, is it's got to be pretty individualized once you get up to this level and stuff. And the higher your ranks go, you got to find what works for you.
Yeah, we're really nitpicking to
Yeah.
like the differences and strengths, right? Like
Oh, absolutely. Well, that's fine.
every goalie in the NHL has good hands, good
Yeah.
footwork,
Yeah.
maybe slightly not some not as good as others, but like just nitpicking, find the differences between these countries. And
Hmm.
it seems like it might be a hot take, but like if you look at the top 10 goalies, there's more diversity in where they're coming from than ever before,
Yeah, absolutely. There is.
right? And
Yeah.
whether that's they found the right team where their style works better, or they found the right atmosphere, right? Not even team, just atmosphere. Then you look overseas and their top goalies, it's not as diverse because I think it's more dominated by um I'll say imports, but that can be like a Finnish goalie going over to Sweden,
Hmm. Yeah,
right?
well, I mean, that's just the thing too, like those with the European leagues and whatnot, you know, like the best guys in the world are going to come over to the NHL. There's only 62 of those jobs, and you know where the rest of those guys, you know, going to play, and they're going to be elite level goalies in their respective leagues, you know. And like everyone, like all the countries nowadays, like there's so much knowledge about goaltending, and everyone's trying to find the new best technique to
Yeah. The
take
next edge.
take golding, yeah, whatever it's going to be. But I think like I think the game is just, no matter where it's going to come from, the idea of it is just going to be, how can we stop pucks the most efficiently, like with the least amount of movement, like the maximizing your structure and coverage, and you know, not losing your net, and just all those things.
Yeah. last thing here. We're just gonna go right to the US. Do you guys find that there's a difference between like American goalies and Canadian goalies?
No, like just in
Pretty much
general
the same.
styles. Yeah, I think like the overall, approach to it is pretty similar, I think.
I think it's the fact that like the leagues are so intertwined that
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
there's so many American goalies in Canadian leagues, there's so many Canadians in American leagues. Like it's
Mhm.
everyone's playing the same game. Like
Caliber of hockey, yeah, I agree.
it's really just like everyone's getting trained by the same guys. So like everyone's seeing the same people and having the same mindset. So I don't think I think North American like it's North American goalies. Like I don't think you can
I
really
think
go.
one thing that we kind of didn't talk about too is we grew up on NHL rinks, where in Europe you're growing up on Olympic size rinks.
I think
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I haven't really thought about that too much, but I mean, I actually only really ever played on one Olympic sheet, and that was in Surrey. And I found that I honestly had more time with stuff. Sometimes, the players take it wider. It's further away from you. They're passing at seams from the walls. Like it's a
It's
longer.
easier, to be honest
Yeah,
with you.
I mean,
Yeah.
to an extent, I suppose. I mean, there is more room for guys to get lost on the ice and whatnot, but overall, I say it's not too different, but
I'd say
definitely aspects.
I'd say the biggest I think the biggest difference in turn like I don't think the ice sheet is the biggest thing. I think it's the style of play.
Mm.
I think
Less
Europeans is very
physical.
much or like North American is very much like systems. Everything's a
Gotcha.
system, whereas European is a little bit more like there's a few guys just skill. Like it's all skill. Or like they're trying to do something and like I think that's where I'd say maybe the skating comes from is that they're playing a very like it's a lot of passing and it's a lot of but it's unstructured passing type thing. It's more of
Right.
a passing where goalies have to be more patient because it could be that double backdoor pass.
Right.
Yeah.
They're the European. I think Europeans are seeing that a little bit more. Like that. That's just kind of an example off my top of my head, but they're seeing more stuff like that compared to like, all right, if they pass backdoor in North America, unless it's practice and guys are being idiots, like it's not
It's
going
gonna
back.
be,
It's
yeah,
not going
fair.
across. So you're just sliding, and it's
Yeah.
almost that like, okay, I know this happens, I do this. Whereas Europeans like this happens. All right, we don't know what happens next. So it's kind of just like, well, we'll try.
Yeah.
And I think that like their patience and skating comes from that. Or
Yeah, that can be, yeah, that's interesting because there's definitely like a memory style to your like goaltending too. Like you have a rush coming down, you have some sort of idea of what's going to happen, and yeah, with that, the skating and the unpredictability of that and like a more skilled game definitely transitions into your like muscle memory of it and
I
whatnot
think
and not being too one-minded about a play in front of you.
I think that could also be a reason, like in kind of more recent times, like European goalies might be having a little bit more success at the NHL levels because the NHL game is almost moving towards a more European style in its own, where guys are
Yeah,
trying
fair.
things that like you've never like Zegers to Michigan, like all these stuff that like you've never really seen before. And it's like, all right, you got your RVH guys gonna like guys behind the net. Beforehand, it was like, all right, he's not a threat.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's either gonna like skate out or like pass out. But you never had to like think like, oh my god, he's gonna flip it over the net or like pick it up and try and put it by my ear. Where then it become just all right, stop the puck, and you're like, a guy tried to pull a Michigan on me. I think my freshman year. I was like, okay, well, I saw it, and I'm like, all right, let's put my head
Yeah.
in. Like, there's no like memorization to like, you're not practicing that. Like,
Yeah,
you
that's fair.
gotta stop the puck. So I think that might be the NHL game, I think, is moving towards more of a European style too.
Yes,
Now,
team changes.
yeah. Last question here, and then we'll sign off, at least from the podcast. But if you could go back, right, rewind the clock a little bit, maybe keep it in the same year, so 2023, but you're 14, 16 years old again. What are you doing differently now? Like that you get the second chance? Are you utilizing different tools, or are you implementing stuff in your game earlier? If you could, what would you want to do differently, if anything?
Honestly, if I would have had to like go back and teach myself something when I was around that age, I guess it would just be, dial the game back a little bit, try and make it simpler on yourself. You can use like that athletic style and quickness and to lose your net when you have to, but not so antsy on the shots all the time, being patient and yeah.
Fair.
I don't know. It's a tough one. I mean,
It is tough. There's so many things.
But it's like there's so many things that you learn from experience, and I think that's been a big part of me. Where at 14, I think like if I was doing the same things I'm doing now, I wouldn't necessarily know why I'm doing it, and it'd be kind of aimless.
Right.
Whereas like going through juniors, going through 2 years of college hockey so far, things happen where you're forced to adapt, and you're forced to understand why you're doing something now. And I think that's one thing where I think learning to adapt is like probably the biggest thing as you're moving up levels. Because I mean,
Yeah.
should say, you could probably touch on this a little bit more than me, but like when you get to a new level, like each level, I feel like you have less time to adapt almost, and you gotta be able to kind of jump into something new and be basically hit the ground running. And I think that's one thing where it's weird because it comes from experience as a goalie to learn, but you almost have to know that you're not going to know everything and accept that.
Right. Stuff comes to you at the right time, right?
Yeah, you can't
Like,
you can't force things.
would
I-
you utilize like YouTube and TikTok and Instagram to try to learn more stuff, or would you let the natural process happen a little bit more?
I'd get off social media.
Yeah.
Don't hate that answer.
I got off of it for a while, but yeah, I mean, I think the whole social media aspect of it is good for like younger
It has
kids.
to be. It has to be pointed.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
you're going
Like
to use
it's
it,
good
why
they
are
can go
you?
out there and try drills and practice. And I mean, I did that when I was younger. I'd see like when that 4-puck drill was coming out, when you'd spin around all the pucks and whatnot, and I obviously go give that a try, and then you just practice and practice, and then eventually you get pretty good at it. And then you got decent edges around and tight, like moving like circular motion, which is great. And like it's stuff like that I think is really useful for it, or just like you get out there and practice, and they're like, all right, you go take the goalies and do whatever. It's like, oh, what are we gonna do? And it's like, oh, I saw this drill, and stuff like that. I think it's quite useful for.
Gotcha.
I think the one, like, yeah, like that aspect I definitely agree with. I think the one downside now is like there's so many people being like, this is the right way. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
like it'd be so easy to be like, it's so easy to be impressionable like with social media. So it's like one kid might be like, oh my goodness, I saw this. It for some reason it clicked in his brain, and he's gonna try and force this. And I think
Right.
that's one thing where it's you gotta realize like you gotta test and fail.
Yeah. A lot of
And
people talking absolutes now.
exactly. So it's just like to try something out, but like be honest with yourself, like, okay, what is this actually doing? Is this helping me? Is this something that's natural for me? Is this actually going to help me moving forward?
Mhm.
So I think a lot of self-reflection too.
Yeah,
Awesome.
I definitely tell myself to start like journaling games too. Thought that was beneficial, but that's probably not something too much of like should get into that when you're younger. I just enjoy
It's
it,
hard.
I guess. But
Yeah. I've been trying to tell kids for 5 years now. I think maybe one does it.
yeah, it's not easy. I mean, there's if you
It's
don't really
walking against the
understand like
grain.
why you're gonna, journal games and stuff like that. If you don't have any point of doing it, then probably not for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you guys for your time. See you guys
Always.
next.